This show is part of One Place, a daily network of focused briefings across the stories people follow most.
Welcome to our daily health roundup. We are diving into the latest medical breakthroughs and wellness trends to keep you informed about the science affecting your life and your longevity today.
Gum disease bacteria might actually fuel breast cancer growth.
Stopping Ozempic might not cause the feared weight rebound.
Ultra-processed foods significantly raise your heart attack risk.
The FDA is backing off stricter tanning bed regulations.
Readers share their best tips for reducing phone screen time.
Blood pressure guidelines are shifting toward much lower targets.
A simple earache led to a life-threatening meningitis coma.
A judge will vacate a declaration on gender-affirming care.
Faulty brain waste disposal systems may trigger early psychosis.
Belly fat predicts heart failure even at normal weights.
First, the oral health link. Researchers at Johns Hopkins have uncovered a startling connection between oral health and breast cancer. They found that a common bacterium associated with gum disease, known as Fusobacterium nucleatum, can actually travel through the bloodstream and settle in breast tissue. Once there, it doesn't just sit idle. It triggers inflammation and causes DNA damage that can spark the development of cancer. This is particularly concerning because the study showed the bacterium makes cancer cells more aggressive and resistant to standard therapies, potentially making the disease much harder to treat effectively.
The implications for those with genetic predispositions are even more significant. The study noted that the tumor-promoting effects were even stronger in individuals with BRCA1 mutations. By introducing this bacterium into breast ducts in animal models, scientists observed the formation of lesions and increased spread of cancer to the lungs. This research really underscores the importance of maintaining good periodontal health, as it might be a hidden factor in cancer risk. It suggests that something as simple as regular dental cleanings could play a role in a broader preventative health strategy. Next, weight loss drug updates.
There has been a lot of anxiety regarding what happens when people stop taking GLP-1 medications like Ozempic or Mounjaro. Many feared a massive, immediate weight rebound. However, a new real-world study from the Cleveland Clinic involving nearly 8,000 patients offers a much more optimistic outlook. Unlike earlier clinical trials that showed rapid regain, this study found that many patients managed to keep the weight off for at least a year. This success often came from patients either restarting the medication later, switching to different treatments, or successfully implementing long-term lifestyle changes that stuck.
It is important to distinguish between controlled clinical trials and everyday medical practice. In the real world, patients have more flexibility to adjust their plans with their doctors. The data showed that about half of the patients who stopped the injections were able to maintain a stable weight or even continue losing. This suggests that the drugs can serve as a powerful jumpstart rather than a lifelong requirement for everyone. Having structured lifestyle support and alternative obesity treatments available seems to be the key factor in preventing that dreaded rebound once the primary medication is discontinued.
Now, ultra-processed food risks. A major new study presented at the American College of Cardiology's annual session has linked ultra-processed foods to a 67% higher risk of heart attack and stroke. We are talking about common items like chips, frozen meals, and sugary drinks. The researchers found that for people consuming about 9 servings a day, the danger is quite severe. Even more concerning is that the risk isn't just for heavy consumers. Every single additional daily serving of these foods increases the likelihood of a major cardiac event by 5%. Regardless of your overall diet quality or calorie count.
This study is particularly notable because it focused on a diverse group of over 6,000 U.S. adults, confirming that these risks apply broadly across different populations. The link was especially strong among Black Americans. While these convenience foods are often the easiest option for a busy lifestyle, the biological cost is high. The researchers emphasize that even small reductions in ultra-processed food intake can make a difference. Swapping out a packaged snack for whole foods could be a life-saving habit change, as the cumulative effect of these processed ingredients clearly takes a toll on cardiovascular health. Next, Tanning bed regulations.
The FDA has officially abandoned a long-standing proposal that would have banned minors under 18 from using tanning beds. This move comes with the support of Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has expressed a desire to end what he calls the government's suppression of sunshine. The proposed rules would have also required adults to sign risk acknowledgement forms. Medical groups, including the American Academy of Dermatology, are deeply concerned. They point to extensive data showing that indoor tanning significantly increases skin cancer risk, with those starting before age 20 facing a 50% higher risk of melanoma.
The Department of Health and Human Services says they are trying to balance public health with consumer choice. However, dermatologists argue that the damage seen in the skin cells of tanning bed users is as alarming as the damage from tobacco. The World Health Organization even classifies these UV-emitting devices in the same category as carcinogens, like asbestos. While the administration cites scientific and technical concerns for withdrawing the rule, the medical community remains adamant that the lack of regulation will lead to more preventable cases of the deadliest forms of skin cancer among young people.
Now, digital detox tips. Many of us struggle with phone addiction, so NPR recently asked their audience for their most effective methods to stay offline. One popular suggestion was to delete social media entirely to seek real-world connection instead. Others suggested more tactical approaches, like not saving passwords in your browser. This forces you to manually enter them every time, creating a moment of friction that can stop an impulsive scroll. Another reader mentioned charging their phone in a completely different room at night, which prevents the habit of reaching for the device first thing in the morning or right before falling asleep.
Some of the most creative ideas involved replacing the phone with analog tools. One person carries a paperback book everywhere, finding it much more enjoyable than a screen. Another keeps a physical notebook to jot down questions or thoughts instead of immediately Googling them. There was also a great suggestion about making it a social effort, like using a phone basket during dinner parties. When everyone agrees to be offline together, it removes the fear of missing out and allows for deeper, more memorable conversations. These small, intentional changes can significantly reduce the urge to constantly check for notifications. Next, blood pressure targets.
Blood pressure guidelines have undergone a major shift, moving away from the old standard of 140/90. New evidence, particularly from the landmark SPRINT trial, suggests that aiming for a systolic number below 120 can drastically reduce the risk of heart attacks and strokes. This is especially important for older adults. For years, doctors were less aggressive with hypertension in seniors, but we now know that high blood pressure is closely linked to cognitive impairment and dementia. Lowering that top number through a combination of medication and lifestyle changes, like reducing salt and alcohol, can be life-changing.
It is a bit like a game of limbo, asking how low you can safely go. While the 2017 update recommended medication for anyone over 130, the latest clinical focus is on getting even closer to 120 for high-risk patients. This intensive treatment was found to be so beneficial in trials that researchers actually stopped the study early because it was considered unethical to deny the control group the better outcomes. For patients, this means more frequent monitoring and potentially adding more medications, but the payoff is a significantly lower risk of cardiovascular death and a better chance at maintaining brain health.
Now, a meningitis warning. A harrowing story out of Northern Ireland serves as a reminder that bacterial meningitis can strike adults quickly and without the classic symptoms. Mark McNamee went to bed with what he thought was a simple ear infection and a fever, only to wake up days later from an induced coma. He never developed the well-known red rash that many people associate with the disease. Instead, his symptoms were dizziness, vomiting, and confusion. This case highlights how a seemingly minor infection can escalate into a life-threatening situation in just hours, leaving even healthy adults fighting for their lives in intensive care.
Mark's wife, Ellen, mentioned that she initially thought he was showing signs of sepsis, but meningitis never crossed her mind because of the common misconception that it only affects children. The strain Mark had was particularly severe, leading to brain inflammation and encephalitis. He is now on a long road to recovery, but the experience has been a wake-up call for his community. It is vital to recognize that a rash is not always present. If someone has a severe headache, light sensitivity, or sudden confusion alongside a fever, it is a medical emergency that requires immediate attention. Next, a legal ruling.
A federal judge in Oregon has announced he will vacate a declaration made by Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. regarding gender-affirming care. The declaration had asserted that such care for transgender youth does not meet medical standards. However, a coalition of states sued, arguing that Kennedy overstepped his authority since the regulation of medicine is primarily a state-level responsibility. Judge Mustafa Kasubay agreed, stating that the declaration materially modified how standards of care are applied. This ruling is a significant check on federal attempts to supersede state laws and professional medical guidelines that currently support these treatments.
The legal battle also involves proposed rules that would withhold federal funds from health institutions providing this care. Experts noted that Kennedy's declaration had already led to at least 17 hospitals being referred for investigation, causing many to stop providing services out of fear of losing funding. The judge's decision to side with the states highlights the tension between federal policy and established medical practice. While the Department of Justice argued the declaration was just an expression of opinion, the court found it had a much more direct and disruptive impact on how healthcare is delivered across the country.
Now, brain waste systems. New research suggests that a malfunctioning brain clearance system might be a key driver of psychosis and schizophrenia. Our brains have a specialized network called the glymphatic system that acts like a plumbing service, flushing out metabolic waste and toxic proteins. In a study of young people with a high genetic risk for psychosis, researchers found that this system was failing early on. This failure leads to a buildup of stimulating chemicals and inflammatory proteins that can damage brain tissue. It is a fascinating look at how a physical plumbing issue in the brain could lead to a disconnection from reality.
The study focused on a specific genetic condition that missing a piece of chromosome 2002, which significantly increases the risk of developing psychotic symptoms. Scientists believe this genetic deletion might damage the blood-brain barrier and affect how certain brain cells, called astrocytes, mature. These astrocytes are responsible for driving the fluid movement that cleans the brain. If they don't work, the waste accumulates. Understanding this biological mechanism opens up new possibilities for early intervention. If we can find ways to support or repair the brain's waste disposal system, we might be able to prevent the onset of severe psychiatric disorders. Finally, belly fat risks.
Your waistline might be a much better indicator of heart failure risk than your overall weight or BMI. New research presented by the American Heart Association shows that carrying extra fat around the belly, known as visceral fat, is dangerous, even for people who have a normal body mass index. This type of fat is particularly harmful because it is linked to high levels of systemic inflammation. This inflammation can damage blood vessels and lead to the buildup of scar tissue in the heart. It explains why some people who appear to be at a healthy weight still develop serious heart issues.
The study suggests that clinicians should focus more on measuring waist size rather than just relying on the scale. By monitoring central obesity and inflammation markers, doctors can identify high-risk individuals much earlier. This allows for targeted prevention strategies before symptoms of heart failure even begin. It is a reminder that where you store fat matters just as much as how much you have. Focusing on reducing belly fat through specific lifestyle changes could be one of the most effective ways to protect your heart long-term, regardless of what the number on the scale says about your total weight.
That wraps up our health briefing for today. Join us again tomorrow for more updates on the science and stories that matter most to your well-being. Have a healthy day.